we start recording sooner, so then it captures us like with our candid conversation. We add those to the bloopers at the beginning. I don't know if you saw the one with Tom. There's some pretty funny stuff in there.
I did see one with Tom, yeah.
Yeah, there's some pretty. All right, so I'm going to start with an intro. Get some water first, and we'll dive in.
Inside a lamp where wishes come true. RouteGenie's here to show you what you need to do. NEMT insights, we got the key. Unlock the journey with RouteGenie.
Welcome to Inside the Lamp, your go-to podcast for everything NEMT and RouteGenie software. Let's get moving.
Hello, everybody. Welcome Inside the Lamp. Today, we're going to be chatting with Steve and Carly Newman. This father-daughter team operates 360 Quality Care and Transport in St. Louis, Missouri, where they have launched and perfected the Priority Medical Transport, or PMT model. This model has allowed them to differentiate themselves as a premium medical transportation provider in St. Louis. Let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about this model and what they're doing in their business. Let's get moving. Hello, everybody. Welcome Inside the Lamp. We are here with a really special episode today. We've got some awesome guests. I'm here with Carly and Steve Newman from Quality Care 360 in St. Louis, Missouri. Carly and Steve, say hello to everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
So today we're going to talk about priority medical transportation and how Steve and Carly are delivering just another level of service to the folks in St. Louis, Missouri. So Steve, why don't we start with you? Take us through what priority medical transportation is and how you're delivering that level of service to the folks in St. Louis.
Sure. Yeah, we've been in business now for, we're in our 9th year. We've grown pretty quickly to about 30 odd vehicles. But what we noticed was that there's a big disparity between what we consider to be essential doctor appointments and just regular therapy checkups or follow-up visits. So as we were growing, we wanted to become the go-to provider for skilled nursing homes and hospitals and really focus on that private pay or facility pay type of business. And we knew that we were operating a system that's 98% on time. And we use RouteGenie to track all that kind of data as well. So, but it really kind of differentiated us because what we found is that most of our competitors are really much more focused on volume. And we've always taken a quality over quantity focus and a value over volume focus. So we start our days off rarely providing drivers with more than about 6 legs a day. And that gives them a lot of flexibility into their schedule. And it allows us to focus on the people who are really the most chronic, the most acute, the most catastrophic injuries and sicknesses. And that's the population that when they are going to the doctor's offices, they are generally going to see a specialist. And sometimes it takes 3, 4, 6 months to get an appointment with those specialists. So it's critical that we show up and we get them there on time. So we created priority medical transport as a means of differentiating from the volume-based providers. And it set us up much to really, it enabled us to really focus on our partnerships with hospitals, with doctors' offices, and skilled nursing homes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great call out because there's different types of appointments and those folks that they've waited 6 months. Those are the kinds of calls when we get support calls, especially when someone's having trouble with a trip. Those are the more frantic ones, right? When it's like that this customer's upset. They've been waiting 6 months for this appointment. We really need to get them there. Those are the ones. Those trips, everybody wants to get everybody to their appointments, but those are the really critical ones. So it does make sense kind of treating them in a different tier almost of transportation. So that makes a lot of sense. So, you mentioned, kind of 6 legs per vehicle. That's obviously a little bit lower than a lot of those higher volume providers. How have you supported, running your business with that, with lower volume like that? Obviously, you've set rates that support that. You've got to go and find partnerships to bring in volume enough that you're able to, support the business. How have you built those partnerships with your customers?
Well, we always consider ourselves to be a premium level service. So we're in a great market in the sense that we're not the most expensive provider in town, but we're higher priced than most of the volume-based providers. It really comes down to building a relationship and partnering with the hospitals, with the doctor's offices, the surgery centers, et cetera. And it's not something that happens quickly. You've got to really build out your model. You've got to explain the points that we differentiate ourselves in. And those are things like NEMTAC accreditation. We are one of only 13 NEMTs in the entire country that are NEMTAC accredited. You know, when a hospital is looking for a partner, they don't ever question an ambulance. They know that an ambulance is nationally accredited and they know that they're fully credentialed, but that's not true in the NEMT world. And I often think of the transportation, the NEMT segment as kind of like a triangle. You've got a big base at the bottom and a point at the top. And at the top, you've got the EMS and the ALS ambulance services. And at the bottom, you've got this wide range of various NEMT companies that range from taxis and ride shares and single person, single van operators, and maybe doing wheelchairs, mostly ambulatory. And we feel like there's a middle point somewhere in there between the ambulances and the NEMT at the bottom. That's the focus of the area that we want to partner with our surgery centers on, to make sure that we can, you know, it's a premium level service. It's a higher level of service than the traditional volume-based NEMTs, but it's based much more on a high quality service, which means you got to be on time every time. So you build a reputation for reliability and timeliness. And then, you know, the other piece of that is you've got to, if you're going through all this credentialing, let's make it available to people. So part of the accreditation process with NEMTAC was we got to work with ProCredX, which is a national credentialing exchange. And we host all of our credentials in the ProCredX cloud. It's an encrypted cloud. Now those hospitals who are on a private pay basis are liable for the people that are leaving their facility, but they don't even know how to check credentials with a traditional NEMT company. With us, we can give them access to ProCredX. They can see immediately that we've got every driver and every vehicle. All of our company statement SOPs are all listed and detailed in the ProCredX cloud. I think the other thing too, just to finish that point out, because you asked me about 6 rides a day. It's not that we only do 6 rides a day. We generally, our drivers are going to end up with about 7 to 9 legs. But when you schedule them at the beginning of the day with 6 rides, as the day flows and as the business changes and doctors run late or finish early, it leaves gaps in the schedule that we're able to fill with hospital discharges. So we've got a 2-hour window all of a sudden. Now we can give that driver another ride. So we're still ending up the day with 6 to 7.5 rides per day as the KPI that we're looking at.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. It's, you know, especially when you get those discharges or things happen, if you don't have any room in your schedule and your schedule is jam-packed, obviously it's hard to adapt. But when you have some flexibility in the schedule, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So you mentioned differentiation. That's something I kind of want to talk about a little bit, because that's one thing, you know, when I've talked about, I've done marketing presentations at NEMTAC conferences and talked about that. And that's one thing I always talk about is everybody asks, so how do I get more business? And if you can't talk about what you can do differently than someone else, it's going to be a lot of trouble, because they have a provider, most likely. There's someone that they're working with. If you can't tell me what you do differently, why would I switch my service to you unless I'm upset? If I'm upset with my provider, then great.
Right.
But you're banking on that person being upset with their current provider. So you've got to tell me something that you do differently. What you talked about with credentialing is a fantastic point, because I mean, in most markets, I think it maybe varies a little bit from place to place, but that hospital has responsibilities after that patient leaves the hospital. In most situations, if that person ends up back in the hospital in the ER related to their surgery, the hospital's essentially picking that up for free, because they have post-care responsibilities. So making sure that they're transported properly, but also making sure that they have transportation arranged properly for their follow-up appointments and things of that nature. Making sure they have a good partner for those things that's reliable and can get them to those appointments on time is critical. So having that, not only the credentialed drivers that you can make sure that that wheelchair is secured properly and things of that nature, but also that you're going to be on time for that follow-up appointment. That's going to take a lot of liability away from that hospital and really produce some financial gain for them. So that makes a lot of sense. Carly, let's flip it over to you a little bit. Let's talk about how do you make all this happen? So obviously there's the ideas. The ideas are great, but then you're the one that kind of, you're the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain over there. So how does this all work?
I think it's a team effort, to be honest. That's first and foremost. But we basically have a scheduler that does the majority of scheduling out the first half of the day, which is critical in at least getting our drivers to their first couple or 3 rides of the day. They know what to expect. All of our drivers are also very aware that there are going to be changes throughout the day in their schedule. But then we also have a team of dispatchers that really try to navigate all of the concerns or questions of all of these phone calls and all of these issues that families don't really necessarily understand that we see day to day. So like if there are steps or any kind of concern of the patient's safety of how they're going to transfer from their house and into our vehicle, we have 5 dispatchers a day that are going to be navigating those calls. They're going to be fielding all the questions, and they're going to be trying to eliminate all of that for when the driver gets there. So I think that it's important that the team is recognized in all of this, but it's also allowed for us to help with scheduling. So like if we know the background of and making notes in RouteGenie, making notes of what's all going to happen during the transport, we know that ride is approximately going to be like 40, maybe 30 to 40 minutes, as opposed to maybe something that's going to take a little bit longer with a stretcher or anything like that. So
yeah, those real-time ETAs definitely help. Having the vehicle is going to be there at about this time. This is when we're going to clear. Having those real-time ideas of when things are happening that's one thing we get a lot of feedback on. That's really, really helpful for folks that have made the switch. Steve, I know you use a lot of the data in RouteGenie to kind of help you model and do things. Can you talk about that real quick and how you've used some of the data to help you deliver on the PMT model?
Well, I think any successful company you have to know your KPIs, and so we run reports every week that tell us how many rides are coming from skilled nursing homes, how many rides are coming from hospitals, how many are private pay, how many are invoiced, and then how many are we getting through the brokers. We're a little different because we don't rely entirely on brokers. We fill in gaps in our schedule with broker rides. So we keep a lid on the number of broker rides that we do. Otherwise, I think you can develop some bad habits that we just choose not to want to do. Not that there's anything wrong with brokers, but they can lead you in that volume-based direction, and we really want to stay focused on the private pay. So we're looking at a model that basically is 33% private pay, 33% facility paid, and 33% brokers. And so as long as we're pulling reports every day that say we're exceeding the 33% on the private pay and the facility paid side, that's where I want to be all the time. And then we'll fill in those gaps with broker rides. And it's a model that we kind of stumbled into it several years ago, and it worked, and it kept our margins where we wanted them to be and allowed us to reinvest back into the business, keep on expanding and building out those relationships. And last year we were able to bring on a sales resource to help us expand even further into those relationships. But it all starts with managing the data and figuring out what the KPIs are that you need to operate your business on a daily basis.
That makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned NEMTAC being a key differentiator for you. You find that your NEMTAC accreditation really helps out with building your relationships and establishing new relationships?
Oh, I do a lot of networking events as well. And I think to stand up in front of a group and tell people that you're one of only 12 or 13 nationally accredited companies, that's something that we're really proud of. And we like to brag about it. And I think in the healthcare world, where credentials are so important, and almost every aspect of healthcare has credentialing of some sort or another, people really get that. They understand the value of it. And as I say, it's a huge differentiator. I really would love to see a lot more companies become nationally accredited, because I think it's easier to explain that you're one of, let's say, 50 or 60 companies than sometimes it is to say we're one of 12 or 13 companies. Makes it sound like it's still in its infancy, and yet the accreditation program is really well thought out, and it's designed to go through all of those SOPs. And it also leads you into things like safety practices, best practice safety standards. And, as we've grown, we've been fortunate enough to join a captive in our insurance. So that there again is another avenue that it's just loaded with best practices. Now we're looking at insurance in a whole different light, because we're part of an ownership group in an insurance company that's backed and reinsured. I can go on and on about captive insurance that honestly, I don't understand all of the benefits yet. But the one thing that I do know is that they put a tremendous emphasis on safety procedures. So we've put together a safety program that we had implemented about 18 months ago, where our average driver was scoring on the cameras in the vehicles that we have, coming back with an average score of 66%, which we thought, there's room for improvement there. We didn't really know how good that was or bad it was. I can tell you now, though, that since we've been in the captive and since we put all these safety standards together to become nationally accredited, the last 3 months, our driver safety performance scores have all exceeded over 97%. Last month, we had 11 of our 20, 28, 29 drivers, 11 scored perfect 100%. So those kind of things I think are fantastic.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
11 100s. Those are hard to score.
Yeah, but it shows you if everybody else is the same as we were 18 months ago, 2 years ago, they're all in that 66% bracket. So it's another thing that's huge differentiator for us. And we really did have to make a lot of changes and come down on the drivers, and the drivers have taken it really, really well. We've incentivized them, put reward programs in, and that's one of the things I've been really, really most proud of over the last 18 months, particularly.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. So for those that might be interested in NEMTAC accreditation that are hearing this, you can check that out at NEMTAC.co, or if you reach out to us, we can point you in the right direction. We're very involved in the NEMTAC organization as well. We'll be at the conference as well. If you want to learn more about PMT, Steve, you're going to be talking about PMT at the conference this year, correct?
I will. Yep.
So that is August 24th through 26th in Dallas. So if you want to learn more about that, again, NEMTAC.co, that's NEMTAC.co. And it's a fantastic conference. It's growing more and more every year. I think last year was over 500 attendees. And it's catered directly to the NEMT industry. As far as I know, the only conference that is centered specifically around NEMT. Certainly our biggest conference of the year that we attend. So we will be there. We'll have our whole team there. So we definitely look forward to seeing some folks there, and we definitely highly recommend it. So definitely make sure you check that out. But Steve and Carly, thank you so much for joining us inside the Lamp. We appreciate your time, and we will see everybody next time.
Thanks. I will just add, you guys have been great to work with too. We love our relationship with you guys. Wasn't always easy when we started with you guys, but you've been there for us, and you've really been a fantastic resource for us. And we honestly couldn't do what we do without you guys.
We appreciate that.
I will second every bit of that.
We appreciate that. Software changes are hard. So we understand that. We know how hard that is. We try to make it as easy as we can. So I'm glad to hear that we made it as easy as we could, and we're glad that it's working well for you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
Thanks again to Steve and Carly for chatting with us today. If you have any questions for them about what we've talked about or for us, please leave a comment in the comments section. We'll be sure to get you answers to your questions. If you have anything else you'd like us to discuss, any topics, any guests you'd like us to invite on board, we're here for you. So please leave us a comment. Let us know what you'd like to see from us. And as always, please make sure you like, follow, subscribe. Make sure you don't miss any of the great NEMT content that we're putting out. But that is all for today. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time inside the Lamp.